has never failed me, Lord.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of 2911, A Faith Experience. I'm Brian Christopher Clay, and I'm glad that you are here with me for our weekly journey, music and a message that I truly hope is engaging you and empowering you to be traveling on this journey that we are all on together towards meaningful discipleship out in the world. In plain talk, it's actively doing what God has for you and I to do in the world. As I've said before, I'm convinced that the gifts that God has placed in each of us, well, those gifts are God's gifts to the world through us. And we shouldn't be doing anything less than being out in the world sharing those gifts. It's wonderful because God set it up so that we can be our authentic selves in the world and do just that. So, that's what 2911 is about. It's about God's plan for our lives. Good plans. So let's get after it. I got something interesting for you today. 2 words. Stop praying. Yeah, you heard me right. Stop praying. Stop. A phrase that we are hearing over and over in the world. You're in our thoughts and prayers. You're in our thoughts and prayers. Without a doubt, I believe that prayer is absolutely a weapon of the believer. Okay? So don't get me wrong. A person of faith knows that prayer is powerful. James chapter 5, the prayers of the righteous have great power. They availeth much. The power of prayer and God's urging for us to pray. It is said countless times in Scripture. I mean, too many to count. But here's something for you to think about. Once upon a time, in an extreme situation, God told one of his most faithful and devoted followers, a man of steadfast obedience to God, a biblical hero, Moses. God told Moses, stop praying. God literally told Moses to stop praying. Yes, God did. Now consider this. If we acknowledge and accept that prayer is a wonderful thing, why would God tell Moses to cut it out? Why would God say to Moses, literally, stop praying? Here's the story. It's from the book of Exodus. Moses had just led the people of Israel out of slavery and out of Egypt. Through Moses' hand, God had turned the Nile into blood. He had brought plagues on the Egyptians. And with boldness, Moses had led the nation to freedom. And it was incredible. We've heard those stories. Now, shortly after a triumphant march out of slavery, Pharaoh has a change of heart. We know that too. And he decides to chase down the fleeing masses with his army in order to drive them back into slavery. And Moses, he started to pray. He started to cry out to God. So why shouldn't Moses cry out to God? Why would God object? The newly freed Israelites had already cried out to God. Earlier, Moses says, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. It's there in Scripture, yeah. So there are indeed times when all we can do is stand still, pray, and wait. Those let go and let God moments. You know what I'm talking about. But by the time we get to chapter 14, verse 15 in Exodus, it apparently wasn't one of those times as far as God was concerned. Thus God says to Moses, why do you cry out to me? And then God says, tell the children of Israel to go forward. In other words, it's time to get off your knees, get into your hiking boots, and get moving. Tell the people the time for standing still is over. Now is the time to do something about the situation. To do something. I recently read the following in a devotion, and it resonated with my soul. Here's what I read. When you feel as if you lack courage to take action, channel a strong leader you know. Most people usually jump into a situation after somebody issues an order. But if nobody takes the lead, what do you do? And here's the thing that really hit me in the devotion. If one act of leadership can change a situation for the better, then one act of detachment can have a negative effect on a situation. So as people of faith, we have a responsibility to lead and to do. We have a responsibility to act. And this means so much in our world right at this moment, right now, with social unrest happening, grave concerns about equality in our country and around the world, incidents of senseless violence happening literally daily, every day, injustice with regard to race, racism, ageism, issues of gender equality. There is so much. And we can make two really big mistakes regarding prayer. One is to think that we can get along just fine without God's help. If we just work hard, sweat equity, sweat hard enough, just keep on working and think clearly enough that we can make it all happen. I can put on my boots right now and fight my way through the wilderness. That's what we think. It's our nature. I get it. Second mistake, there's something to be said for waiting for God, standing still, shall we say. It's absolutely true. It's right there in 2 Corinthians that God's strength is revealed through our weakness. But hear me clearly, simply sitting in our PJs while we're waiting for God, well, that can be just as bad as thinking that we can do it all ourselves. Most of the time, God expects us to be actively involved in carrying out His will. Yes, He wants us to be actively involved. And God has gifted every one of us for work in the world, for beautiful and wonderful and meaningful things that we are supposed to do. That's what 29:11 is all about. Jeremiah 29:11, doing God's work in the world, using the gifts that God has placed in each of us. Our weekly gathering here is for the purpose of empowering all of us to find that gift in each of us and use that gift, that thing in the world for good. And this story we read in Scripture is an example of a thing we have to do sometimes. Why do you cry out to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward. What is God telling you to do right now? Discipleship is action in the world. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. It's right there. So I ask you again, what is God telling you to do? What is He telling you to do? Stop praying and start doing it. Oh, that thing blessed me, and I hope it blessed you too. Here's a little music that I hope is another blessing for you.
I'll never be more loved than I am right now. Wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. It doesn't take a trophy to make you proud. I'll never be more loved than I am right now. Yeah.
Going through a storm, but I won't go down. I hear your voice carried in the rhythm of the wind to call me out. and I will be content in every circumstance. You are Jireh, you are enough, forever enough, always enough, more than enough, forever enough, always enough, more than enough.
I don't wanna forget how I feel right now. On the mountaintop, I can see so clear what it's all about.
So stay by my side when the sun goes down. Don't wanna forget how I feel right now. And you are Jireh, you are enough. Jireh, you are enough. And I will be content in every circumstance. You are Jireh, you are enough, forever enough, always enough, more than enough, forever enough, always enough, more than enough. I'm already loved, I'm already chosen. I know who I am, I know what you've spoken. I'm already loved, oh, more than I can imagine. And that is enough. I'm already loved, I'm already loved, I'm already chosen. I know who I am, I know what you've spoken. I'm already loved, more than I can imagine. And that is enough. And that is enough. And that is enough. Jireh, you are enough. Jireh, you are enough. And I will be content in every circumstance. You are Jireh, you are enough. Jireh, you are enough. We sing Jireh, you are enough. And I will be content in every circumstance. You are Jireh, you are enough.
Well, hey, folks, thanks so much for joining me again for this edition of 2911. Always glad to be here with you. It's every Thursday, 12 noon Eastern on Facebook. The page is 2911, A Faith Experience. Like, share, and follow. You can also find it streaming live Thursday, 12 noon Eastern on YouTube, on the YouTube channel. 2911 A Faith Experience. Subscribe there, okay? And you can always come back to content. This is probably episode 25 or something like that. So there is significant content that if you're catching up, just go to the page anytime you want. Grab a cup of coffee, sit down just for a few minutes and enjoy music and a message that this is 2911 A Faith Experience. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Like, share, follow, subscribe, okay? All right. And as I always do, I'm going to leave you with the wise and wonderful words of Maya Angelou. She says, people will forget what you say. People will forget what you do. But they will never forget how you make them feel. So make sure you go out in the world today and make somebody feel God's love. Yeah? Yeah. We'll see you soon. Peace.